What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Dawg Sports. I'm very excited for our very first episode of Dawg Sports. We are recapping round one, joined by my guy, Evo, to my right, as always. First time on a Dawg Sports, just making that transition over from our old name, the Lyman Lounge. So anybody that checks us out on Twitter, you will probably see that currently still has its name, the Lyman Lounge Podcast, because Twitter is dumb, or X is dumb, and it won't let me change it after I've accidentally already saved something. So, but yeah, everything is getting changed, man. I'm excited. I love the new intro. I love the new layout, and we got a lot of football to talk about because there's a lot of guys coming to the NFL. But my man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Exciting first round. Definitely some picks that we didn't expect to see, some that we did. It definitely wasn't like completely chalk. But I kind of felt like that was how this draft was going to go. I mean, again, Daniel Jeremiah, I believe, was the one that coined the term, but there's a lot of starters, not a lot of stars in this draft. And that means that teams are going to have very widely differing opinions on these players and where they're at on their boards. So picks, 10 through 50, it's going to be wild to watch. Right. And we got to see a lot of that tonight. We got to see a bunch of good players still on the board, and guys go maybe a little bit earlier. Things like injury designations and whatnot probably push some guys down even out of the first round. So really interesting to watch. Very fun, very cool. And I'm glad to be here doing this on Dawg Sports, the new channel.
Hell yeah, man. Dawg Sports. So let's hop right into raw dogging some football in a pick that I think everybody saw coming. Unless there was some sort of major shakeup. Cam Ward goes 1, Tennessee. We do a mock draft last night. Cam Ward was projected to go there, was picked there last night, but the guy who picked him doesn't necessarily think that great things are coming for Cam Ward and the Titans. Obviously, I know that you're high. This is a slam dunk for them. This is a no-brainer for that organization. I don't know if it's going to work, but this has to be the pick here.
Yeah, they signaled it from the beginning, not bringing any sort of other quarterback competition, not going after a Sam Darnold or an Aaron Rodgers. They didn't have any real contingency unless they wanted to roll with Will Levis again. And they showed us all last year that they weren't willing to do that because he got pulled multiple times. When if they really were trying to feel him out and develop him, they probably would have continued to play him. The fact that they brought no one in, and then we hear about this Godfather offer that was, brought up from the Giants, and they turned that down. That meant that they were set on who they're going to pick, and there was only one option at that point, and that's Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward, best arm talent probably in this draft. Listen, I am high on Cam. I like Shadur more. We'll talk about that whole storyline as this thing goes on. But I couldn't see it happening any other way. The draft didn't really start until after this pick happened. And that's when things started to get interesting. My Browns were in that 2 slot, did not stay there. We get a absolute haul of picks and assets to build for the future, but we trade out of that spot all the way down to 5. Jacksonville comes up, takes Travis Hunter. I mean, I don't know how you can't not like Travis Hunter. I know I'm higher on Travis than you are, but for Jacksonville, he can actually, I think he's going to play on both sides of the ball because they need help on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, look, I'm in a weird spot with Travis Hunter because it's not like I dislike him at all. I just maybe I'm more of a purist of like I prefer a guy to have one position that he can truly focus on and get good at. And that's not to say that Travis Hunter is not good at either of the positions that he could play, defensive back or wide receiver. I just think that you could see diminishing results from that. It makes it not necessarily, I don't even want to call it a risk because you're getting a really good player. Like high end, if this all works out, you just got two grade A players for the price of one, except for the picks that you had to give up, which
Yeah.
they did give up a considerable amount. First round next year. Let's see here. So Browns moved down 3 spots. Cleveland got the number 5 pick, a second round pick this year, which is number 36, a fourth round selection, number 126, and the first round pick from the Jaguars next year. And the Jaguars might not make a tremendous leap, so that could still be a pretty good selection. Which in my head tells me, hey, you know that you're going down to pick 5. You're going to get one of 4 players, one of 3 players, really, because they know Travis Hunter is going to pick 2.
Yeah. Abdul Carter was basically a slam dunk at 3.
Right. So they had a pretty good idea of who would be available to them there. It's low risk moving down if they're comfortable with the player that they think that they're going to be able to get. And you're getting enough trade assets to make some impactful moves in this draft. But next year, when I've felt that you need to focus on that quarterback position, it gives you plenty more ammo to move around and get the guy that you want. Now, I know you want Shadur.
I do.
Still a possibility.
Yes, it is.
It wasn't a part of the first round. Shadur Sanders drops out of the first round, and we kind of will talk a little more about that as we move along in the spots where he was looked at.
But moving on to the third pick, man, Abdul Carter. We talked about it on the mock last night. This is a slam dunk. They don't want to pay not Thibodeau.
Yep.
Kayvon
Thibodeau.
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau. And yeah, this is a perfect replacement. Makes a lot of sense. So I didn't want Abdul Carter, but it's not because I don't think he's a good player. I didn't want Abdul Carter because I didn't want a defensive player. I'm happy with who I have. We'll talk about it in just a second, but I wanted offense. We need to score points. This is a great pick for the Giants.
Yeah, look, that's Kayvon Thibodeau probably immediately is a trade candidate. The Giants absolutely could keep him because you can never have enough pass rushers, and you still have him on a rookie deal. But Kayvon Thibodeau probably holds about a second round value right now, just based off of his early career production and where he was drafted. He hasn't lived up to those expectations recently, and that's why the Giants are willing to go after an Abdul Carter here and possibly move on from Kayvon Thibodeau. So he's a name to probably watch tomorrow as someone that could be moved for an extra pick or something like that.
All right, man. And then on to number 4, and a move I didn't necessarily see coming, but it makes a lot of sense, and especially with their new head coach. Patriots take Will Campbell, left tackle out of LSU, a good left tackle. I know there were questions about his arm length. We've talked about it ad nauseum. They talked about it on the broadcast, on whichever broadcast you wanted to watch. I guarantee it was talked about. It makes sense to fortify your offensive line, protect your rookie investment. They got everything stacked into Drake May being a dude. So they got to protect him. So this makes a lot of sense. You want to see a weapon, but they can find a receiver still here late. There's a lot of guys still on the board here early in the second round that can be a really good weapon for this Patriots team.
Yeah, look, Will Campbell, you can talk all you want about the arms. At the end of the day, he's a really good player. Maybe that hurts him a little bit production-wise as a left tackle, but at the end of the day, it's your first draft as the head coach. If you're Mike Vrabel, you want to get a guy that not only is going to be able to help you on your team, because Will Campbell can play all across that line, interior, outside, whatever, doesn't matter. He's a super high character guy. He's a team leader. He's extremely smart. I believe he was making the offensive line calls as a left tackle for LSU. And that's the type of character, type of foundational piece that you want to build around on your team. They need help all across the offensive line, so you know you're getting help for your, or not rookie, but for your young quarterback. This was probably the easiest pick in the last 72 hours or so outside of Cam Ward and Abdul Carter in the positions that they were going to.
And I really thought they would go with an offensive playmaker here. I thought that they would try to attack offensive line in the second and third rounds. But listen, they're higher on Will Campbell than I was. I didn't see Will Campbell as being one of these top 5 offensive tackles. So for me, the value wasn't there, but they do see it. Another place I didn't necessarily want to see a tackle is on the defensive side of the ball for my Cleveland Browns. I'll hunt to the 5th pick. After the trade, we take Mason Graham. Love the player. He's a stud. I think he's going to be really good, especially with Myles Garrett working alongside of him and a nice little rotation of pass rushers that they're kind of developing. That's going to be an exciting defensive front. I still don't know how we're scoring any fucking points, though. We're going to have to address that immediately tomorrow. Those first 2 picks in the second round should be offense. They're going to have their pick of quarterbacks, which is terrifying because it could be Milroe, who is there in Green Bay.
Could be Shuck.
It could be Shuck. It could be Shadur. I'm hoping, obviously, it's Shadur, but they can back that up with a playmaker at wide receiver. They could back that up with running back, which is definitely still a need with no Nick Chubb signed. So moving down and getting a quality player in Mason Graham is awesome. Being able to attack the offensive side of the ball is awesome. But missing out on a guy that like a Travis Hunter and still not having a quarterback, that's tough. That's really, really tough. I'm very excited for Mason Graham. I think he's going to be great. We need to get some offensive skill players on this team badly.
Yeah, look, I can make arguments both ways here. Personally, I'm kind of, I think, in line with you where I did not think this was the right pick. I like Mason Graham. I'm not like I was higher on him previously, and I'm still higher on him as a fringe top 10 player in this draft. But I kind of agree. I wish you guys would have gone offense. If you're going to go for a lineman, go for an offensive lineman because you want to protect whatever sort of investments you make there. You want Nick Chubb back. Well, you want Nick Chubb to look like Nick Chubb of old. Give him a good offensive line. Same for any running back that you take, because I really feel like your guys are going to go after a running back, probably with one of those 2 second-round picks that you have tomorrow. And so that's kind of where I would have gone. But you are in a position now where you hold that first pick in the second round and the 4th pick in the second round now, and all night to think about which direction you want to go. Will you take a quarterback? Will you maybe take an offensive lineman? There is a lot of good defensive players that are still on the board too, and I know that scares you, but I mean, like, the value is there for those guys. Not
Yeah, it
that you
is.
necessarily
But
need them. That's you look at how many offensive tackles were taken in this first round and offensive linemen. Like, a lot of the really good ones went, and so you're looking at some diminishing returns here come second round, where maybe you can't get the same quality of offensive lineman. But there's still some, if they want a defensive tackle, there's still some good defensive tackles on the board. I just feel like it's tough because Mason Graham's a good player.
yeah,
And
awesome.
and the best teams do kind of take BPA. They don't take for need. This wasn't necessarily a huge need for you guys. It kind of was probably, according to their board, BPA. So it's a tough spot. I know that Cleveland is probably very wishy-washy right now on.
Apparently, the concert was a shit show. People were fucking furious.
Yeah. So, look, it'll be a fun watch for you tomorrow, especially early.
Yeah. Listen, I was very excited when this thing started. I got excited twice. I got excited again when I saw there's a trade. It wasn't us. But you know what? We get picks very quickly tomorrow, so that will be fun. Let's move on to the next one, brother. And one of the picks that I thought was just obvious as hell, Jancy to the Raiders. That it perfectly fits. It's beast mode 2.0. He's actually a little smaller than Marshawn, but runs exactly like him. Goes the Pete Carroll led offense. 100% fits. Another team that might be looking to add a quarterback early on day 2, though.
Yeah, possibly. I think they're gonna kind of run with Geno, obviously, for now, but you don't feel as bad Uh, if you take a quarterback in the second round, especially with the value of the quarterbacks that are there. But look, Ginty, it seems like that perfect fit. Yesterday and even today, I had said I don't think that he's going to go there because there were a lot of highly trusted people, draft experts, saying the word that they're getting is that Ginty's not going to go six of the Raiders. They want Membu or they want Calvin Banks. And then actually, Tedero and McMillan, some of his previous coaches are on the coaching staff there for the Raiders. So there was some smoke there for him as well. Ultimately, it was like the most obvious pick is the one that they went with. They need running back help. Sincere McCormick, God bless you, but you're not the guy. Raheem Mostert, this isn't 2 years ago. So getting a Ginty in there perfectly fits what Pete Carroll wants. He's not a young guy. He needs impact now. Ginty's going to give him that, something that he's comfortable and knows how to use.
Did they give Geno an extension as well?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Or did they rework his money? I don't remember. I think something happened with his contract as well. I don't remember.
I can look it up while we start talking about this next pick.
Yeah. Moving on to the Jets, who make a completely un-Jets-like move and draft an exceptional player. A guy that we were talking about in the chat that I kind of was okay with taking at 5. Like Membu was there for us. The Jets get him here. He's a stud. We talked about him last night. His technique is damn near flawless. He's going to be exceptional for the Jets. And they've been trying to figure out the tackle spot for a while. They've got a lot to figure out with the Jets, but this is a step in the right direction. This is a good pick.
Yeah. So Geno Smith under contract through 2027. Doesn't look like they added anything else to that contract. So not super long-term. And then when it comes to Armand Membu, like I texted you during the draft, I said, the Jets are healing. They had cancer. It got scooped out aggressively. And now you've got a really, really good offensive lineman that's going to fit in really good with that offensive line and make them a pretty damn good unit.
Yeah, it's a good pick, man. Good for the Jets. We'll see what happens with that organization going forward. The Jets are healing. Yes. Producer Amber, and they're hopping there. All right, man, we're moving on to, I think, probably the first, really super questionable pick. Not with the player, but the fit doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The Panthers need to continue to add pieces for Bryce Young, but they go out and they get Tedero McMillan, who's a good receiver, but he's a big slot receiver. And they already have a couple other guys who profile as slot receivers. So are they expecting Tet to go and win on the outside? Or are they moving on because there's some age there with your boy that they might be trying to move on. Because I talked about Tyler Warren in our group text, could be right here. I thought it would have been a great fit. Nice security blanket for your now starting to emerge quarterback. But they go here.
I'm perfectly fine with him going there. I think that he profiles well as either an X or a Z receiver. He's got the size for it. You can talk about his speed all you want. I don't think people were complaining about the speeds run by an Anquan Bolden or anything like that when you look at their production in the league. Ted McMillan, super sure-handed, great wingspan, super fluid runner. The obvious number one receiver in this draft to me by the end of the process. And you're giving a big target for your young quarterback out there to continue to try to help him develop. Now, they do have Adam Thielen. They did rework his contract, so he still has another 2 years there where they can't easily cut him. And then you have Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, I believe. They've got some options there, but I do think that A, it gives you flexibility. You can move these guys all over the place, but B, Tet does profile. I would prefer him as more of a Z, but he can be the X receiver in this offense. Yeah, a tight end like a Tyler Booker or a Colson Loveland wouldn't have been a bad fit here. But this is, again, like I'm saying, it's probably based on who they have rated on the board, where they probably just had Tet a little bit higher. And I think he's a great pick for them. if you aren't going defense. Like the defense is decrepit, devoid of talent outside of a defensive tackle, essentially. So, like, I think they need to hammer that defense the rest of their draft. But this offense, outside of the question mark at quarterback, actually is pretty solid. So like it's a really nice safety blanket. They've given all these tools to Bryce Young to be able to develop. We'll see if he can actually come through with it.
All right, man. Moving on to the Saints taking a tackle, Kelvin Banks Jr. There was obviously talk of potential of quarterback there with the news of Carr going down, but they lose Ramczyk. There's a lot of things that this team has lost. One thing they haven't found is salary cap space. So they go out, they get a young tackle, probably to replace Ryan Ramczyk, and they'll deal with quarterback next year or later in this draft because they're still not in a spot where they can compete. I like the pick. It makes sense, especially with the news of Ryan Ramczyk.
Yeah, look, Newsmeyer or Arch Manning, one of those guys is probably going to be their target next year. They really weren't in on the quarterbacks outside of Jackson Dart this year, and this was way too early for him. Now, Kelvin Banks actually is a really sneaky good pick for them. As far as the offensive tackles on this board, he is probably the most true, ready to go offensive tackle right now at left tackle. I think Josh Simmons will be the best left tackle out of this draft class, but Banks has that flexibility to play guard if need be. But the thing is that they drafted Talisi Fuanga last year, who was a right tackle, and they played him out of position at left tackle with Ramczyk off on the right side. Now you're able to move Fuanga back to the right side at right tackle, put Kelvin Banks at left tackle. And then you have Trevor Penning, who's probably going to move into a guard spot. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option, so they're like, see what we got here, see if you can play guard. Like, it makes their bookends really solid right now, which is what you want when you're going to bring in a young quarterback eventually. So a solid pickup there for them. We say this all the time. It's part of our previous show, the Lyman Lounge. You build through the lines, you build through the trenches. This was a bad team who's in a bad spot, and they're not going to get good overnight. But if you want to get better, you got to start building through the trenches.
I agree, man. I agree. And that Saints offensive line, the Trevor Penning pick, I'm trying to go back and see if I can find the write-up that I had because we tore that pick apart.
I mean, I liked the tenacity.
Yeah.
But also, we had our words about maybe don't get into altercations with your teammates and things like that.
Yeah, he's crazy man. All right, let's move on. In another pick that I found shocking, maybe some people didn't. Colson Loveland comes off the board. Not that Colson Loveland is not a good player. Colson Loveland first tight end off the board above Tyler Warren. I didn't see that coming. I thought Tyler Warren would go first, but pass catching ability, that's what the Bears are trying to go with. I mean, when you consider the new coach, everybody's comping the Sam Laporta comp. So Colson Loveland goes. Another good weapon for that offense that continue to build around their young quarterback that they hope to turn into a superstar.
Yeah, look, Ben Johnson probably brought over a little bit of that, mentality from the Lions. Don't worry about where everyone else has him. If this is our guy that we want, go out and get him. Most people had Tyler Warren as tight end 1 and Loveland as tight end 2 or 1A, 1B, which is kind of where I had them. But you've got Cole Kmet on the roster. Cole Kmet has a little bit more similarities, I suppose, to a Tyler Warren. So you'd be a little bit redundant there. I still think I would have taken Warren over Loveland in this spot. But they had been mocked a tight end, specifically Warren, a lot in this pre-draft process, especially towards the end. So they're able to go out there, get a weapon who isn't as redundant with Kmet. Kmet can be a little bit more of a blocker, whereas Loveland, he tries, but he's not very good at it. And so they get another super solid option, basically a very large wide receiver type of guy. And that's kind of what you need to do for your quarterback is surround him with weapons. They already had good weapons there. They've bolstered that offensive line. And that's what they're going to be leaning into this year is fixing that offense. We'll see if Ben Johnson can bring over some of that Detroit magic and make Kalen Williams into a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL.
All right, moving on. 49ers go edge. Mykel Williams, low production, but I mean, all the physical things are supposed to be there, right? Are they gonna unleash what this kid is capable of doing? It's not the first time that we've seen the 49ers take shots on these guys, the Solomon Thomases of the world, and it doesn't necessarily pan out. How do you feel about this Michael Williams pick?
I mean, I wasn't personally huge on Michael Williams, but he fits their profile, their traits that they're looking for, the size that they're looking for, especially with Robert Saleh being back there. That's his type of player. Um, but I personally don't like the pick a ton, and I feel like he could be a B player, like an okay player. The upside with him is there. You know, he's playing at Georgia on a really good team where they spread the wealth of talent and who's getting those actual statistical production values. And then you also have Michael Williams being injured a majority of the year last year, which is going to stunt some of that production. They're going to bet on the upside and development there. I felt like they could have gone different directions here, a safer pick, but this was more of a swing for the fences type of guy who could develop into a really good guy because you can't teach his size and his athletic ability. It's
Right.
just either you have it or you don't. Now they need to coach him into getting that production up.
And Coach Salah is a good defensive coach. So you would expect to get something more out of him. Moving on to the next one, though, Cowboys go out, they get a guard. Obviously, they need to continue to build that offensive line. Tyler Booker is the pick out of Alabama. Big man. I mean, they had to either go running back when this was too early, in my opinion, with Ashton Janty gone for Marion Hampton, or offensive line because the injuries and the retirements have decimated their offensive line. So I love this pick for the Cowboys. They should be happy. It's not exciting. It's not a thrilling pick. Guards are never flashy, but it's a damn good pick.
Yeah, like we said in the chat, like this is a smart move by Jerry going after offensive line. You again build through the trenches. You want to get a running game going. You can take a good offensive lineman and build a good offensive line and make a less than running back, a less than a GT style running back in the second round look just as good because he's running behind a good offensive line. Tyler Booker, I had a lot of good things to say about him in our offensive line breakdown. I'm a fan of Booker, a fan of the fit here, and it was a smart pick by Jerry Jones.
We don't say that very often.
Not very often. You know, like I thought he was trying to go with the flash. He wants the fireworks. Thought he might have gone after a receiver here or something like that, or Tyler Warren being on the board. You know, you can have Jake Ferguson and Tyler Warren out there. Like there's options like that, and they made these smart long-term trenches move, bringing in Tyler Booker.
They did. I thought about getting out the hat if Jerry did something stupid, but he didn't do it this time. Moving on to the Dolphins, Kenneth Grant's D tackle out of Michigan goes at 13. This is another one we kind of talked about it as well. It made sense. Nolan, I think, is a better player. Harmon, I think, has way more upside as well. Kenneth Grant's a big time run stopper. He's a good player, but when we start getting in this range, we're going to start talking about a lot of these guys that are like, okay, yeah, decent player, except for some of them that fall, like a Tyler Warren that we'll talk about next. He's, in my opinion, like one of those close to being blue chip guys.
Yeah, look, Dolphins had nothing on that interior defensive line. They really haven't since Christian Wilkins left last year. And they wanted to bring something in to kind of fix that. Again, starts with the trenches. So if you want your defense to be better, build through the trenches. That makes this a good pick. Do I think that Grant is a good player? Yes, I think that he's probably the safest defensive tackle out of the group of guys that end up going. But I like Harmon better. I like Nolan better. But both of them have issues or flaws that probably cause them to drop and not be an obvious selection here at 13. Nolan, more and more stuff comes out about his maturity issues, walking out of practice and stuff like that multiple times, you know, jumping all sorts of different schools. And then you've got Derek Harmon, who today it was talked about that he's dealing with some sort of a hip injury and a shoulder injury. And when you hear about injuries this late in the game, that's going to probably cause you to take a little bit of a tumble. Both those guys, higher upside, and I like them better as prospects, not by a ton, but that probably caused them to drop a little bit. And Grant is a safe, solid interior defensive player. So not a bad pick here by the Dolphins.
All right, man. Moving on to a pick that I love. Just talking about it. I love Tyler Warren. And the Colts needed a pass catcher. They have been dying for a tight end, a safety blanket for whoever the fuck is playing quarterback for them. We don't know who it's going to be. Anthony Richardson doesn't really target tight ends or didn't do so very effectively last year or effectively target anybody. But Danny Dimes there now as well. Nice security blanket for him. This is a great pick, in my opinion. They still have a lot of work to do because the quarterback situation is still far from figured out. They're going to have a competition, I believe. I don't know that there's actually a competition. I'm pretty sure that's Danny Dimes' job, and there will be a competition right now. But this is a big asset for that offense.
I'm not so sure there will be a competition. Look, if Danny Dimes wins out of camp, I think that Daniel Jones is probably the better quarterback. Pure quarterback, Danny Dimes, right? And we've seen that he can be average at times in that Giants, offense with less than awesome skill position players. Now he's going into an offense with a whole bunch of good skill position players. Like, this is a very good situation. Danny Dimes can run that. Plus, he just went through quarterback rehab school with Minnesota Vikings, so he's probably going to be pretty fucking awesome. But if he wins the job outright over Anthony Richardson, that's kind of like signing your death certificate for the coaching staff and the front office who took such a high pick on Anthony Richardson. Like, you would have to have a stellar year from Danny Dimes for them not to be under heavy scrutiny for having taken Anthony Richardson and not developing him. So I think Richardson's probably going to get the job coming out of camp. But Danny Dimes is there as the safety blanket, where if the wheels really start to fall off again with Richardson, Dimes can come in, try to save the season, try to save some jobs. Either way, look, Tyler Warren, great pick for whoever ends up playing quarterback there. Hopefully he gets used appropriately. And worst case, you got your third string quarterback right now. He threw the ball a little bit there in Penn State. So you got that option. It makes your offense very multiple. So solid pick there by the Colts.
He is actually left-handed when he throws, so he might actually be the vanilla Vic.
Maybe.
Just saying. All right, Falcons go out. They get Jalen Walker, position guy, moved positions. We like him better as an edge. That's probably what they're going to use him as. Needs to be that for the Falcons because they cannot generate any pass rush whatsoever. But do you have any concerns? Position change and the coaching has never really developed a pass rusher down there in Atlanta. They have drafted multiple guys and they have never figured it out. At least not in the last decade, I feel like.
So, I mean, it's newer coaching staff. Raheem Morris, he's going to be able to bring over some of the traits and tendencies that were under that Rams McVay offense. And in our mock draft yesterday, we actually had we had Jalen Walker going to the Rams later on in our large mock draft. So I think that he fits there, but positionally, he might not be like that hand of the defensive end. They might play him a little bit more as that outside linebacker, off-ball linebacker, who is going to blitz a lot because they ended up going for more of a traditional 4-3 type of end a little bit later in a trade back into the first round. So, look, it was just a surprise that the Falcons said, hey, we have this need, and we're actually going to go after it. The guys that they took last year, Ruka Roro and Braylon Trice and guys like that, they're, mid-round guys, more developmental, and they didn't get a lot out of them. Maybe they still develop. This is a guy that was talked about possibly going as high as like pick 8 to the Panthers originally. So they're able to get him here at pick 15. It fills a need. It fills multiple needs because they need linebacker help too. They need defensive end, pass rusher, linebacker. Now you can find a spot for Jalen Walker where in certain sets, he might be playing as a 3-4 edge rusher. In certain sets, he might be playing as a 4-3 outside linebacker. Like, he's a multiple type of player. They'll find a way to get him to fit in because he's talented.
He is very, very talented. Another guy that's very talented, fell a little bit in this draft, though, because some of the off-the-field things. Walter Nolan goes 16 to the Cardinals. Good player, man. I think he's going to potentially be one of the better penetrating 3 techniques from this draft, and possibly the best one, just because he's got a ton of skills. But you brought it up, some of the character concerns and everything that has happened. is that coaching staff going to be able to rein him in? And that's a coaching staff that we did not necessarily love down there in Arizona.
Yeah, look, Jonathan Gannon, you got to watch his old team and what they were able to do with all that pass rush help, and they've really, really stocked up the defensive line. So if they're going to make a big jump, it's going to be this year, especially with adding a Walter Nolan, who I think can be a phenomenal best defensive tackle out of this class. I think he can be better than Mason Graham, especially as far as a statistical guy. But you're adding him to a defensive line that's got Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Darius Robinson, who's an early pick. And now you're able to rotate in a Walter Nolan. Like, that's a pretty solid interior defensive line that they got going there. And again, we're going to keep on banging this gavel. Trench play helps everybody. So having that sort of a lineup on your defensive line is phenomenal. They're taking a little bit of a risk there, but at 16, you don't feel terrible about taking him, even with those character concerns.
All right, moving on. Bengals make a move that I think signals a lot of things in their future. Shamar Stewart adds defensive end, traditional 4-3 defensive end goes to them. Writing's on the wall. Trey Hendrickson's probably not coming back.
I think no matter what happened with Trey Hendrickson, they needed to address that defensive end spot. You need at least 2 good defensive ends on your team to be competitive with the pass rush. They had one in Trey Hendrickson who is willing to sit out if he doesn't get a new contract or if he isn't traded. Sam Hubbard up and retires, so Shamar Stewart immediately steps into that Sam Hubbard role. He's a high upside player, tons of physical traits. Again, not very much production. I lean into a little bit of that being Texas A&M style. They didn't expect that from their defensive ends, but he was explosive, great penetrator, disruptor. He just did not get the sack numbers that you're looking for. So either he's going to have a really quick path to getting that without Trey Hendrickson there, or if Trey Hendrickson does come back for some reason, or they work a contract out, it could be a high upside pick that ends up playing out for them. Either way, they needed to take a defensive end. It's a good pick for them here. You're just, again, kind of like Michael Williams, hoping that he is going to be able to deliver on those traits. I liked Shamar Stewart better than Michael Williams personally. We'll see. I know you're hoping he doesn't reach that potential, though.
No, I hope he stinks. He plays for the Bengals. But other than, his livelihood, I hope nothing but the best for him. Like, I just don't want him to be good against my team. Moving on to the next one, and I know it broke your heart. Your boy, Gray Zabel, comes off the board, goes to the Seahawks. They need to continue to build that offensive line. A lot of upheaval. A lot of things are changing. That offensive scheme is going to change. So having a guy that can really kind of do anything and everything along that offensive line, huge help for the Seahawks.
Yeah, typically the Seahawks don't take offensive linemen, particularly interior offensive linemen, in the first round. But look, Zabel is one of my favorite players in this draft, a guy that I had hoped would fall all the way down to my Vikings. But the way that the Vikings picked, I think that they probably would have taken him if he had been there. And this was the main spot that I was concerned with someone going after Gray Zabel. And of course, they shuck what they normally do, went with a guy who's going to play interior for him. They got a really good player in Gray Zabel. I wish him the best. And he falls into a good spot there with Seattle where they need that interior offensive line help. So he's going to be a day one starter, probably look really good doing it. Sad to see him go, but happy for Gray, happy for NDSU to get a player this high in the draft.
Oh, yeah. Moving on to another guy from my favorite school, Ohio State. Emeka Egbuka goes to the Bucks. Interesting pick. You hear some of the reactions on the telecast, and I think there's maybe some concern about what might be happening with Chris Godwin. You brought up the fact that Mike Evans is no spring chicken. Doesn't matter. He's been rocking 1,000-yard seasons since he's got to the league, but eventually that's going to run out. So going out and getting a guy, Emeka Egbuka, who is absolutely just a sure-handed dude who's going to move the sticks, record holder at Ohio State, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I actually had him going one pick later to the Broncos in the mock last night, but Baker Mayfield's going to get another weapon. I think he's going to be really happy with him.
Yeah, look, a lot of people had defense pegged for the the Buccaneers. And that makes a lot of sense. But Emeka Ibuka, one of the highest floor receivers here. I love this guy. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Now, they did re-sign Chris Godwin. He was a free agent, and they brought him back, which makes you think maybe that ankle isn't as bad as it looked on the screen, because that was a nasty dislocation. But Chris Godwin also not super young. And now you've got this serious injury concern. Mike Evans, not young. He's not a long-term solution there at wide receiver. You liked what you saw last year from McMillan, but Emeka Ibuka is going to be the future of this receiving core on this team. Like, he provides a strong, steady option for Baker Mayfield, not just for the next 2 years, but going on well into the future. They're going to be able to transition away from a Mike Evans and a Chris Godwin and have a pretty smooth transition by having Ibuka there. So obviously this was a good pick based off of best player available and who they had on their board. I still think that defense probably would have been smarter to make their team more well-rounded, but they went after a good player who also is going to be a future position in need for them.
All right, moving on to the Broncos pick. I slotted them with Emeka Ibuka. There was talk of Omarion Hampton. They decided to go the opposite direction. They go corner Johnny Barron. I think it can be an absolute stud for them. On already stacked Denver Bronco defense. I mean, the rich get richer on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. He comes in there and he does not have to compete as the number one guy on the team. You got Pat Surtain there. Now you've got like a number one level cornerback to go opposite of him, who also has the flexibility to go play inside, outside, safety, all over the place. A high value player here for the Broncos. Their defense is only going to get better. And I think that they probably started to look more towards this pick when some of those options, like a Colson Loveland that typically gets mocked to him there, or an Emeka Ibuka or something like that, wasn't available. So that's why they go with just a very high ceiling player here in Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really good. A guy that I hope is really bad, Derek Harmon, going to the Steelers at pick 21. No disrespect to Mr. Harmon, but he plays for the Steelers now, so I hate him. I think he's actually super, super talented. This sucks because he's going to be a dog, and especially if he gets to sit and learn behind a veteran Steelers defensive front, like being in that room. Yeah. God, he's going to be good, and it pisses me off because he's got a ton of physical talents. He just needs some coaching, and couldn't go to a better place for it right now.
Yeah, and look, there was trade talks before this pick. There were obviously thoughts at this pick that this could be where Shedeur goes, because Tomlin has had shining things to say about how he likes him and everything. And they go with a defensive tackle, a guy who I think is one of the better defensive tackles in this class, and probably got here because of those injury concerns. Look, the Steelers got a really, really good player here. They had some big balls to not go after the quarterback if they really wanted him. And it's a true signal, I think, of two things. One, the league is not that high on Shedeur. And two, Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be a Steeler, and they're banking on that. Because otherwise, you got Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson.
You cannot go into the season with that.
They're willing to pass. Like, your quarterback room right now is better than the Steelers' quarterback room
by a lot.
They were willing to pass on a guy that I know that you're really high on, which, again, to me, that signals that the league does not view him as a first-round guy. Obviously, he didn't go in the first round. We'll see where he goes in the draft here. And they go after just a good player instead. It's a very interesting conversation. I know that we're not the only ones going to be talking about this. This is probably the talk of the town right now, is what's happening with Shedeur.
Yeah. The fact he didn't go here made me very happy. I expected him to trade up. Didn't happen. One thing I did not necessarily expect was Omarion Hampton to be on the board here. I thought for sure if the Broncos didn't go with receiver, they were going running back. But Omarion Hampton falls all the way down to the Chargers, and Jim Harbaugh probably fucking ran that pick to wherever it needed to get done and did 50 push-ups, and it was like, get this motherfucker in the building right now because he is going to run him into the ground. Omarion Hampton, if you're a fantasy player, you want to talk about dynasty leagues, get this guy. because he's going to be great for the next 3-4 years because he's going to get 400 touches.
I don't know about 400 touches, but look, Harbaugh loves to run the ball. Is it Roman's their offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Loves to run the ball.
Yeah.
They bring in Najee Harris, a guy that could probably run the ball quite a bit in a system that Jim Harbaugh runs and does a pretty good job with. And now you also bring in Omarion Hampton. You've got kind of a lightning thunder type of situation there. That's why I don't think he's going to get 400 fucking touches.
They're going to
split it.
He is going to outperform Najee by week 5.
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Omarion Hampton is the better running back out of the two of them. But Harbaugh still is very good about having a split backfield and splitting that time. We saw J.K. Dobbins last year have a very good season, and they still made him split time pretty equitably. So they're going to keep Omarion Hampton fresh, use a healthy dose of Najee Harris, but a really good backfield there for the Chargers. They still need to find some more weapons for Herbert to throw to kind of round out that offense. But the run game is assuredly going to be good there in LA with the Chargers.
Yeah, very much so. Moving on to the Packers, they break the mold. They go wide receiver in the first round. You were apparently off of Matthew Golden yesterday. I think you might have been preemptively just saying that because I know you're a renowned Packer hater. But listen, they need to continue to find ways. Their wide receivers, they got a lot of them. They got a lot of young guys. There's no consistency. They have a lot of drop issues. Matthew Golden typically is a pretty sure-handed guy. I think that's one of the things that probably drew the Packers to him. And then you run in the 4.2s. I mean, that helps. So I don't necessarily, with the amount of guys they got, investing in a first-round pick this year is a weird thing. Like all the times where they could have invested in a first-round wide receiver and didn't, and now they do. It's an interesting pick. I thought they were going to go corner because Jair Alexander's probably going to be gone, but the pick is wide receiver Matthew Golden, and everybody in Green Bay was thrilled shitless. It might have been just a publicity stunt to make all of those people happy.
Well, look, I was high on Matthew Golden when we did our wide receiver episode. That was right around when the combine was going on. I was enamored with that sort of a speed. They showed up at the 4.29, but you go back and watch the tape. He did not have 4.29 play speed. I said that my high end projection for him is like a Stephon Diggs type of player because he has good route running and pretty solid hands. But even said he didn't really work into that number one wide receiver slot at Texas until later this year. It was Isaiah Bond who was the number one guy with some Gunnar Helm mixed in, things like that. I think that he's a solid player, but in the first round, this is a lot more projection for him. And I got to be completely honest. If we went back, and this is before the pick happened for Green Bay, if we went back, I've got a couple guys still on the board that I have higher than Matthew Golden that I would have felt better. One guy that we haven't talked about at all as a first round wide receiver, I have as a first round caliber guy above a Matthew Golden. It's not Luther Burden. I do have Luther Burden higher though than Golden at this point. And look, I just hope Matthew Golden is got an insane catch radius because he needs that in order to make Jordan Love look good with the inaccuracy there. But maybe Golden will be used to it because Quinn Ewers has been throwing him the ball. He's not the most accurate guy out there either. So look, Packers, they needed some help at wide receiver. They've got a bunch of guys who are number 2s, maybe number 3s in the league. Golden could possibly project into an X wide receiver, more of a Z in my mind. But I hope he fails, honestly. I just love to see another Packers bust here.
Absolutely. So moving on to a guy that I know you hope is not a bust, and I hope he's not either because I'm an Ohio State guy. Donovan Jackson, guard, goes to your Vikings. And, I mean, you guys are going to have one of the best offensive lines in football. We talked about it in our text. He's the dog. He has position flexibility. Even if he doesn't immediately start, he's a swing tackle at the worst on this team.
Yeah, look, I had Donovan Jackson as a late first round guy, early second round guy. So this is a little bit early. However, I love the fit for the team. He slots immediately in at left guard. Blake Brandel did a good job at left guard last year until our left tackle went down. Then things kind of fell apart. Now we don't have to worry about that. Brandel is a swing tackle already, a swing guard already. So now we have a good depth there. And then Donovan Jackson immediately fills in at that left guard spot. But he filled in at left tackle so well during that championship run last year for Ohio State that it projects that he can play those tackle positions, both left side or right side, if there's injuries, which is just bound to happen in football. So having solid backup options, having solid starting options, and having guys who can fill in those tackle roles like snap of a finger, that's exciting to have. This is your meat and potatoes type of pick. It's a safe pick. It's one that is gearing up to give JJ McCarthy the best possibility of having success, especially in year one. He's got good receivers. He's got a really damn good offensive line. He's got good running backs. What else could you ask for? A fantastic coach. Like the Vikings offense should not have any excuse for being really good this year, barring catastrophic injury to some of those skill players.
I'm happy for you. Good luck, Donovan. You guys do good. You're the team that I root for in the NFC now.
And I got to say this next pick,
yeah,
which ended up being traded to the Giants. I'm kind of surprised that, like, even though I am happy, I am definitely happy that the Vikings were able to get Donovan Jackson. I'm happy with the pick. I would have to imagine that the Giants at least offered that same sort of compensation that they gave up to the Houston Texans to move into pick 25. I'm sure that they had to have called Kwesi in the Vikings. And I'm a little bit upset that we didn't take that, because a future first round pick would have been pretty nice. And moving down to pick 34, there's a good possibility Donovan Jackson still could have been there.
Maybe he's pretty damn good, bro. But listen, as somebody who traded down tonight, when you get back that extra first round pick, it feels nice, especially when you get a player you like. So, but let's move on, because that trade happened. Jackson Dart goes to the Giants, quarterback out of Ole Miss. They're going Eli Manning all over again. I don't know if they're going to have similar success. I'm not a Jackson Dart guy, but this is what Daboll wants. He wants a guy that is big, strong, can run a little bit, and is going to be willing to put his body through punishment. So Jackson Dart's this guy. Where are you at on this? I know you like Jackson Dart more than I do.
Yeah, so I have to correct myself. I was thinking of the Falcons trade up. The Giants traded pick 34, pick 99, and a third round selection in 2026. So I don't feel as bad about that with us sticking and picking, because getting pick 99 doesn't do a ton for me. So I'll throw that out there. That being said, Jackson Dart, I've said before, he's a low floor, high ceiling type of a guy. I don't want to sit here and completely comp him to Josh Allen, but some of the issues that you saw with Josh Allen were worked out after a couple years under the tutelage of Ryan Daboll. If someone's going to be able to get a successful usage out of Jackson Dart, I believe it would be Ryan Daboll. I think that he's a better quarterback than what they had on the roster last year. You do not have to feel forced to playing Jackson Dart this year at all, because you have Jameis and Russ Wilson there, two guys that are high character guys that are going to be good teachers to him. Daboll can be working in the background, completely gearing up Dart. The Giants overall will be a better team this year than they were last year. Getting Abdul Carter, having better quarterback play on that team, they will be better. That, I think, is going to be enough for Daboll and for Shane to see another year, not get completely fired unless things absolutely implode. That means that, this time next year, Jackson Dart's probably going to be looking at that starting role, and we might be able to see a little bit of an ascent like Josh Allen. I mean, that's a super, super lofty goal. But if you get 80% of what you got out of Josh Allen in Jackson Dart, it's a solid pick. And that's why you take him the first round, because you need that extra fifth year option in order to continue developing the guy.
Yeah, no other quarterbacks will be getting that extra fifth year option this year. Damn it. Moving on to the Falcons, who trade back up into the first round, continue along their march to get some pressure. They go with James Pierce Jr. Guy out of Tennessee that has a ton of pass rush ability. I'm a big fan of when a team recognizes a weakness. It doesn't matter if you did it the pick before. If there's another guy that you like there and he's high on your board, fucking take him. It does not matter that you took another guy who was already in that position. The Eagles did this last year with their cornerback spot. It does not matter. Take guys that you think will fit and make your team better. That's what the Lions have started doing. Hopefully a lot more teams start doing this because you'll get better football. Like when you see a weakness, just attack the weakness. So I like the pick. James Pierce, good player. There's some other guys that maybe I would have liked a little bit better here, but James Pierce should help that team get some more pressure.
Yeah, look, as a 4-3 edge rusher, I really, really like James Pierce. There were some concerns about his maturity. Your maturity can get better. You know, other character concerns might stick with you for life. His maturity can get better. And I don't think that he's a redundant pick to Jalen Walker because he's more of a traditional 4-3 edge. Now, he doesn't have the best run defense. It was average at best, but you're not taking him to be a run defender. They needed pass rush help. They attacked the shit out of it in this draft in the first round. They paid a heavy price to go up there and get him, though. They did trade. This was the one that they traded a second-round pick, number 46, a seventh-round pick, and next year's first round to move up to this spot. That's the one where I was like, if this is on the table for the Vikings, maybe we consider it. They did send back pick 101, so it wasn't completely the same. This is a third-round comp pick, but that first next year, it's a pretty nice grab there for the Rams, and the Rams are able to pick on day 2 at pick 46 and feel really good next year going into the first round.
Yeah, for sure. Something that I don't feel good about is Malachi Starks going to the Ravens. Listen, Malachi Starks is a good player. I had a second round grade on him. I think he gets lost, but he's going to go to the Ravens. And the Ravens are exceptional about finding ways to use these guys that you can move kind of all over the field. Malachi Starks is one of those guys that you're going to be able to play different spots. He's going to have excellent mentorship, tutelage, Kyle Hamilton. So this is a really good pick for them, which again sucks because it's the Ravens. But it's going to be really, really good for that back end. They had to move Kyle Hamilton to the back end of that defense to kind of shore everything up because they were getting murdered over the top. As soon as they did that, that defense changed. Well, now they can bring in Malachi Starks. They can have him replace Kyle Hamilton in either one of those roles. They can be kind of versatile in that aspect. So going to make that team very dangerous on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, look, it seems like a really, really damn good fit because they're able to be so multiple with those defensive backs. Nate Wiggins, Malachi Starks now, Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, all being able to kind of rotate, all being able to play different positions back there. You're going to be able to modify that defensive backfield for whatever offense you're going up against to correctly match those guys against the weapons that you're going to be facing. That makes the Ravens really dangerous on their back end. They always have a good front seven. So having that sort of a defensive backfield, super, super solid. It gave me a little bit of a shiver because Malachi Starks was a guy that the Vikings absolutely should have been in on and were talked about a lot as being one of their targets. And it makes me think of 3 years ago now when we took a safety that we shouldn't have. And then the Ravens ended up taking the safety that we should have taken, Kyle Hamilton. And Kyle Hamilton is now one of the best safeties in the league. And our former safety, Lewis Seen, is a backup on the Eagles who we had to cut last year because he's hot garbage. Skipping on a good safety makes me a little bit scared. Yeah. I'm very happy with Donovan Jackson. Is the route that I want to go, even over Malachi Starks. But seeing another good safety go to the Ravens, it does make me kind of think about what could have been.
Oh, man. All right, moving on to the Lions. Tyleik Williams comes off the board. I thought edge might be in play, but with maybe James Pierce going, some of the off-field issues with some of the other guys and like a Mike Green, they decided to go with some interior defensive line help in Tyleik Williams, a guy that I like. Obviously, I'm an Ohio State guy. He's close about the value for me. But listen, Detroit's already a really good team. They're going to get a defensive tackle who's going to be able to play the run and generate some pass rush as well. It's a good pick.
Thing to attack as a pass rusher, but you move Tyleik, particularly in that one tech nose tackle type of role for them that allows Aleem McNeil to continue to be a pass rusher. And once that defense is healthy, that overall is going to make them very good. Tyleik, to me, this is a little bit of a reach for him, which we should know by now. When you say it's a little bit of a reach for the Lions, that means this guy's going to be fucking awesome. But like they have hit ever since their new GM took over, Brad Holmes, since he took over, they are hitting left and right on everybody that they're taking. And so this is obviously a Dan Campbell guy, obviously someone that they want in the building, and he's obviously now going to be very good, fits in well with this defense. Yes, pass rusher, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, seems like it should have been something that they're going to or wanted to look at, but there's still a lot of good guys on the board as far as pure just pass rushers as far as edge guys go. And I'm sure they're going to be able to find their way to one of them in the next 2 rounds.
All right, so going from guys that rush the passer to guys that are supposed to protect them, Josh Connerly goes to the Commanders, and this was Connerly's a left tackle, right? Or do you got him right tackle in the NFL? Because they have made some moves to improve that offensive line pretty substantially. I know injuries have kind of shown up there late in the year, but this feels like a weird fit.
So he's probably going to fit in as a guard initially, but so Connerly got great movement skills, very athletic, very agile, but not very strong, needs to develop that strength. Mike Tice is number 1 tackle in this class. They do have a left tackle that they just traded for from Houston, which means that Connerly's probably going to be over on the right side, either being trained up to be the left tackle of the future, or he might slot in as that right guard initially.
They just traded for Laramie Tunsil. They're not moving Connerly, or they're not moving Tunsil for Connerly.
No. Tunsil's not going to move inside. Tunsil's going to be that left tackle.
Yeah.
However, Connerly is kind of a projection for the future. He possibly could play some guard. I would want a guy to be stronger than he is to play that guard position. I think that they are just looking at this as, hey, solid offensive line value built to the trenches. This gives us some flexibility as long as you think that he can play some guard. I'm not as super high on it because I think Connerly needs some work, especially in the weight room, to get stronger. But if they think that the value is there and worth it, we'll see.
All right, man. Moving on to the Bills. Maxwell Hairston. Yeah, Hairston. Getting late. Comes off the board to the Bills. A guy that I didn't really see mocked very much in the first round, especially to the Bills here. How do you feel about this?
He's lean. He's very fast. A little bit more of his own guy. I think that he went in the first round. He's gotten more first round steam in the past 72 hours or so. And I think that's because of the other cornerbacks that are still on the board, who I like better, that are dropping because of injury stuff. Will Johnson, Savon Ravel, and Benjamin Morrison. I like all 3 of them better than Harrison, but all of them have injury concerns. I would have taken Amos well ahead of Harrison, and I think he fits better with the Bills here. But look, they need cornerback help. We'll see if he's got the juice for him.
All right, man. We're going to kind of talk about these last 2 picks together in tandem because it's bullshit. They're just like, hey, you know what? You guys just want to keep playing each other in the Super Bowl? Let's swap so you guys get exactly who you need and is a perfect fit for you. And we'll get what we need, and it's a perfect fit for us. They swap picks 31-32 for very little compensation. The Eagles
get 5th rounder.
Yeah. Jihad Campbell, who is going to be an absolute dog on that fucking defense. And the Chiefs get possibly the best left tackle in this entire draft in Josh Simmons, he'll redshirt a year, but that's fine with the Chiefs. They're completely content with that. And they're going to be much better for it in the long run. Brilliant move by both of these teams. Very small commitment, but this is fuck these guys. What the hell?
Yeah, like Jahad Campbell, best pure interior linebacker in this class. I see shades of Urlacher out of him. I love Jahad Campbell. He probably fell because again, just came out, had surgery on his shoulder for a torn labrum after the combine. It was a known thing that they kind of didn't make public, but it was the teams knew about it. And that caused him to fall a little bit. But he's just an outstanding fucking linebacker, super good defensive get for the Eagles here. And then Josh Simmons, again, who I think is the best pure left tackle in this class and would have gone very, very high if it wasn't for the patellar tendon tear. He goes to a huge position of need at left tackle for the Chiefs. But the Chiefs did go out there, sign the backup tackle from the 49ers. So they have their stopgap. Simmons does not have to start right away. He continues to rehab. And when you inevitably see the Chiefs in the playoffs next year, that's when Simmons realistically could start to work into that starting lineup coming back from the injury. And that, look, it's what the Chiefs really needed was fortify that offensive line for your quarterback. Offensive line got ate the fuck up in the playoffs, especially by the Eagles, and they went out there and addressed it. Got potentially the best left tackle in this class, just a guy that you're not going to see a whole bunch of production out of, especially early on this year.
Yeah. Man, so great first round. Browns will be on the clock coming back at 33. So there's quite a few names that are still there that are really, really good players. Obviously, in my mind, somebody that I'm targeting is Shedeur Sanders. The precipitous drop kind of had been brewing over the last couple of days. The talk had started to happen that the Browns were not taking. We were on Travis Hunter. Then we trade back. Okay, well, maybe the Saints are in on him. No. And then maybe the Steelers are in on him. No. At some point, somebody's going to make him their quarterback. That could be the Browns early, but there's a lot of guys that are still there. Milrow, who is at the combine. Shuck, that has been talked about. Who are you targeting if you are one of these quarterback needy teams early tomorrow? So I know what I'm doing. I'm going after Shedeur.
If you're a quarterback needy team, yeah, Shadeur's obviously the best one left on the table, in my opinion. But there's a reason why he dropped. Like I've said that I think that his top end is Jared Goff, but I don't know if you're going to get that. And then you have potential character style concerns. I mean, if these reports are correct that he had terrible interviews, that he's pretentious and all this stuff, like teams don't necessarily want to deal with that. And that might be hurting some of his stock there. Like in the second round, I think is the correct spot for him. If you guys were to take him in the second round, that's good for you. I would have, if I was you, I would have hoped to have traded up to one of those last two spots in the first round to get that fifth year option. But again, and I've said this so many times, I don't think he's the answer for your team. I know you really like him, but like I don't know that he's the answer for your team. I would be going heavy in the trenches, offensive line, get yourself a new running back, and still take a swing on a quarterback in this draft, but not with one of these first couple picks here in the second round. Let that be a third round guy. Go out there and get yourself a Will Howard, who I know that you like, or a Kyle McCord, who knows the Ohio area. Get one of those guys. If he develops into a serviceable quarterback, then hey, you don't have a quarterback problem and you got him at a way lower rate. But if he doesn't, it's not preventing you at all from utilizing those first round picks next year to go and get your quarterback of the future, while also having a team that is better prepared to take on a rookie quarterback by, again, building through those trenches. Like these first two picks, if I were you, looking at the different offensive linemen here, Arianti Urzuri is a solid option as a tackle. And I would be looking at those offensive linemen and probably a running back.
The value is just really not there at this point, in my mind, for the offensive line. With the guys that have gone, I think I'd probably slide into the third round for my offensive line because there are some guys. There's obviously some running backs. Travion Henderson, I like. Got Jaden Higgins, I like.
Caleb Johnson.
There's so many. Luther Burden is right there. If we want to go and try to attack from the slot, like There are so many guys. We need to be able to generate some points. So I want to attack offensive skill player. If it's not quarterback, it needs to be running back or wide receiver. I know we need to continue to build through the trenches, but the value in my mind is not there early in the second round. Take somebody who can help us score some fucking points.
I think that with one of those first 2 picks, you'll probably see one of those Ohio State running backs come off the board to your Browns. Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins. I think I would lean Judkins because he's more of an all-around like back, just a sturdier guy than Travion Henderson, unless you want a guy who is the home run hitter. That's a little bit more Travion Henderson in my mind. But get one of those guys. That's going to help your run game build through the trenches. Yeah, it is tough there with the tackles and guards available, like a Ratledge or a Savanea or something like that. If you're going for an interior guy, both options there as well. Probably a little bit more of a third round picks for those guys. But even so, like you see how many offensive linemen went there in the first round. And I don't think that's going to end here in the second round.
Yeah, well, God, I hope it doesn't just keep going offensive line because we're going to need to get a couple of these guys. But God, we need the way the draft has fallen. There's a lot of playmakers still available, and there's some good pass rushers here available too. Mike Green has fallen. I think that's off the field concerns that are happening with Mike Green.
Donnie Ezeraku.
Donnie Ezeraku is still available as well. So, like, there are some dudes that can get after the pass rusher. I know you were not a big Nick Emanwari. You loved the combine workout from Nick Emanwari, but you have started to kind of sour on him a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad my Vikings didn't take him. I think that he is just a lean linebacker, but he doesn't have great vision. He has pretty shit agility. It's why he didn't run the agility drills in the combine. Some people think that he can play actual true like safety. I didn't really see that. Watching the tape, I just did not. He was slow to react to plays. Was not ever a heavy hitter. That's not what I want from that 6'3", 250-pound safety. Like, that's fantastic that he can run good speeds and has a crazy athletic jump. I need the agility. I need the smarts if you're playing safety for me.
I understand that. I can feel that as well, my man. So we got a couple more days of draft to go. This was the first episode of Raw Dog Sports Evo, my man. Do you got anything that we need to go over before we get out of here and get some damn sleep? It's 1:00 in the morning here on the East Coast. I'm exhausted.
No, man. I'm happy with how things turned out for my team. Still probably would have liked to see a trade down to get some more picks because it's going to be lean over the next 2 days for me here as far as picks. But no, I'm happy with how things went. I'm happy to be here doing Raw Dog Sports with you, brother. It was a good little first show. Fun beginning to the NFL draft.
Yeah, very, very good show, man. Before we get out of here, though, producer Amber has asked that we play the promo video one more time. If you guys didn't get a chance to see the promo video, it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it, and I believe following that video, we're gonna have a quick announcement from Jason Kelsey, and then we're gonna get out of here. But let's go ahead and I'll play the video.
All right.
People always ask us how we keep our marriage fresh.
We only do it raw. I raw dog at the gym.
I like it raw when I study.
I raw dog while I party.
I like to raw dog afterwards.
I raw dog at school. I raw dog at work.
I raw dog in the library.
I raw dog in the bathroom.
Raw Dog Sports. You know you like it raw. Damn, that Raw Dog Sports is pretty dope. Hey, thanks, Jason Kelsey. That was awesome. I don't know why we cut those. Actually, my son cut those out of a cereal box, and we felt the need to do that. But I got to tell you, it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah, white guys with beards.
The white guys with beards, baby. White guys with beards. My man, I appreciate you. Everybody who tuned in. Thank you very much. Our outro video, it's not working. So we're just gonna say goodbye right now. Thank you guys very much. This is Raw Dawg Sports. We will be back next week. With that, Evo, give the people one last word.
Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. Happy to be here, onwards and upwards with Raw Dawg Sports, and we'll catch you on the next one. Please take a second as we get out of here and like, share, and subscribe the stream for us. See you later, everybody.